my research finding or research presentation in the very important platform. I take it as an opportunity. I take it as a very, very important pleasure because I am the student of the man behind Resources Himalaya. I still remember when I was studying in master's level, I had an opportunity to be the student of Dr. Prahlad Yonjan for about 2 weeks. And at that time, I had never thought that I would be presenting any kind of talk for the second time. Earlier, I had done my presentation on frogs folklores, some about 5 or 6 years back. And today, after 5 or 6 years back, I'm again here to do my presentation or share some of my understandings on the mixed species flocks. So my name is Kamal Raj Gosai. I work at Transcendent Multiple Campus, and right now I'm also a PhD scholar, and I'm working under my professor Ibn Gudel. He is there in Guangxi University. So I'm also the PhD scholar at Guangxi University, Nanning, China. So let us move to the presentation. Okay. So what we have been hearing from our childhood days is birds of same feather flock together. त्यस्तै प्वाख भएको, त्यस्तै रङ्ग भएको चराहरू चाहिँ एउटै बथानमा उड्छन्, एउटै बथानमा हिँड्छन्, सँगै बस्छन् भन्ने चाहिँ हामीले सुन्दै आएको हो. But today I wanted to give you an idea that birds of different feathers also flock together. Here in this slide, you can see the ducks and sparrows, which are the same, only single species, only one species, monospecies flying together. So this is the saying or proverb that we have been hearing from our school days. But today I wanted to give you another idea that birds of different feathers flock together. But before that, let's try to understand, why do birds of same feather flock together? एउटै प्वाख भएका, एउटै तरिकाको प्वाख भएका चराहरू चाहिँ किन बथानमा हिँड्छन्? Why do birds fly together? It might be because, I mean, it's not might be, it is because of, if you have more numbers of individuals of a species, then there is more safety. So if you have more numbers, more safety, right? Unity is strength. That is what we have been hearing. त्यसैले जति धेरै संख्यामा भयो उति धेरै चाहिँ सेफ्टी हुन्छ, strength मिल्छ. That's why the same feathered birds fly together. In the same way, for the speedy foraging as well. So what would happen is, if you have more number of individuals of one species, then you can find the food very easily. You can discover food. You can locate food very easily, right? So the foraging will be very speedy. चाँडो चाहिँ खाना खोज्न र खाना पाउने chance बढी हुन्छ. That's why same feathered flock together. In the same way, they club together. And the more the number of individuals you have, you can have like different clubs, small or like bigger, younger, matured. So you have different groups. In the bigger groups also, you have smaller groups, and there is kind of unity. In the same way, you have heard and seen the different species, especially the birds which fly in the sky. I mean, the water birds particularly, they fly in the sky in a very aerodynamic shape, that is V shape. So for energy efficiency also, there is the individuals of different of same species fly together. So that means if they fly together, the energy would be efficient. I mean, the air resistance force would be decreased. For that also, the birds of same feathered flock together. In the same way, the next is the communal warmth. So what would happen is, in the winter season, if the different individuals or like large individuals would stay together, then they can share the heat. Just like in the winter season, we always want to stay close to another person, right? Other people, right? In the same way, if like large number of individuals, with like hundreds or thousands of the individuals of birds stay together, then they can gain warmth. during the winter season. So these are some of the reasons why birds of same feather flock together. But now I'm going to present you about the mixed species flocks. That means birds of different feathers flying together. So let us define what is mixed species flock then. So the definition is very basic. When more than one species remain intact, then, and as they move forward through a habitat, like for example, a forest, or for example, a grassland, or like wetland, if they, if they move forward through any kind of habitat, and they have like more than one species, species or habitat, that is what is called the mixed species flocks. Sometimes what you might see is in one tree, in a big or large tree, it's flowering, or like it's a fruiting season, you have lots of fruits, and you have like lots of different kinds of species in one tree. And that doesn't mean that that is mixed species flock. For a mixed species flock, the flock has to move for about 3 to 5 minutes in one direction. And the other direction, if they stay in one tree, or like 2 different trees, or like 3 different trees whatsoever, no matter, doesn't matter how many trees they forest, but if they forest in one place, then that particular flock is called the mixed species flock. So very easy to understand. Mixed species, species mixed flock, and when they move in one certain direction, then that is called the mixed species flocks. And it's interesting that mixed species flocks are all over the world except Antarctica. Probably it's because of chilly, cold temperature over there. So if we talk about mixed species flocks, it's different in different parts of the world. For example, in the paleotropics, that is in Asia, in Africa, South Africa, the mixed species flocks are dominated by different species like babblers. Here we have the babbler, white-browed scimitar babbler, in the same way the minibet, scarlet minibet, in the same way black trongo. So these are the species which lead, or with the most important or dominant species are these kind of species, babblers, in the same way minibets and drongos. Whereas if we talk about the temperate zone, then the mixed species flocks composition is different. There are more number of woodpeckers, there are more number of tits, and there are more number of nuthatches, right? Chestnut-bellied nuthatch. This is called chestnut-bellied nuthatch. So you have difference in different parts of the world. The mixed species flocks composition is also totally different. In the same way, if we talk about the neotropics, for instance, South American areas are called the neotropics, and if we look at the mixed species flocks composition over there, then you have more species are related to ant wrens, ant shrikes, and tanagers. So if we look at this slide, what I want to present is the mixed species flocks composition is not always the same throughout the world. In different parts of the world, the mixed species flock composition is different. Now, let us understand why birds flock together then. विभिन्न स्पिसिसहरु चाहिँ एउटै फ्लक भएर चाहिँ किन उड्छन्? There are basically 2 benefits. The first is the predatory benefits. Predatory benefits means like when you have more number of species, there are different kinds of chances. The chances are the risk dilution effect. One's chance is defined as risk dilution effect. That means if you have more number of species and more number of individuals, then the risk from the predator is completely diluted. That means you don't have a chance to be directly attacked by the predator. For instance, here you have the falconet species. The falconet species has attacked the chestnut-bellied nuthatch. When I was there in Chittoor National Park, I took this picture. In that flock, there were many other species many other species when this falconet has had falconet had attacked this species. There are other species as well. The other species, I mean, of more than like 17, 18 individuals of other different species escaped, whereas this particular species was not spared. It was killed by this falconet. So what happens is the risk, more number of species gives the dilution of the risk from the predators. That's why the different feathered flocks, different feathered species flock together. Another wonderful benefit is the encounter effect or the collective defense effect. Maybe when you go out under your terrace or Kosima Jandakiri, you might be seeing 2 or 3 crows, trying to scare away a black kite. Even one species, the crow, house crow, scares away a black kite. Means just imagine if we have like 8, 9 species and you have 40, 50 individuals of those species, then they can scare away, they can attack or like they can defend the predators, like maybe a kite, maybe an eagle, maybe a vulture, etc. Right? So another wonderful benefit is the encounter effect. You can encounter or you can collectively defense to a predator. The another is confusion effect. So this is again very interesting. So if you have more individuals of more species, then the predator would be completely confused. Yesterday, one of my friends from Chitwan area, he had posted a video of a spotted deer herd trying to confuse the tiger. The tiger was there, and the tiger was completely confused which animal to attack. And that's why all the spotted tigers could escape from the paw of the tiger. In the same way, in the forest, what happens is if we have more species and more individuals, the predator would be completely confused whom to attack, where to attack, how to attack. It would be completely confused. So that is why another advantage of flocking together, different species flocking together, is creating the effect of confusion. And the last is the many eyes effect. So many species, many individuals flocking together means we have many eyes, right? If you have many eyes, so what happens is you can see the predators, where it's coming from, how it's going to attack, how close it is, whether the predator is in close distance, danger zone or not. So they can calculate. The different species can calculate very easily. So many eyes effect also works, is also an advantage when different species flock together. And another important thing is, every species. Okay, so every species, like for an instance, if you look at this picture, different species have different foraging niche. And what happens is some species are in the canopy, some species are in the mid-story, some species are in the understory, and some species are underground, right? So if they are categorized, if they occupy the different heights of a tree, different heights of a forest, then they can very easily locate a predator. So that's why, again, this many eyes effect will help. Many eyes effect will help all those species from the predators. So one important benefit is a predator benefit. Another benefit is a foraging benefit. So if you have more number of species, if you have more number of participants in a species, then they can disturb the insects of the forest. When they move in one direction, when all the species like swarm, if they move in one direction, what would happen is the insects that are there attached to leaves, branches, trunks, everywhere, they would be disturbed and they would fly. And once they fly, the insectivorous birds can easily catch them. So more species, more participants, more individuals, more disturbance, and thus they can get the food very easily. Another thing is the avoidance of competition. right? So here in this picture, there is, I mean, these are different species of warblers. Some warblers stay just outside a tree. Some species stay, I mean, they only occupy this area, and some occupy on the tip of the canopy of the tree. Some occupy over here, and some occupy below a tree. So what happens is you have a share. So they can understand that, okay, so this portion is mine and that portion is yours. That means the species would not have conflict over the food. Hence, more number of species flocking together is helpful in terms of feeding as well. And the last is discovery of food easily and soon. That I think I have already mentioned it earlier. So the more number of species, more number of participants means you can easily find the important food resources. They can discover and they can locate the food here and there, and thus there is a feeding benefit as well. So basically, there are two benefits of flocking, different species flocking together. One is the predatory benefit, and the next is the foraging benefit. So there are different natures. I mean, mixed species flocks have different natures. The first is the permanence. So when you understand the mixed species flocks, you don't want to understand that the mixed species flock, I mean, the flocking together is always permanent, it's not true. Sometimes it's momentary. Sometimes, I mean, they might come together, all the species flock together only for like maybe about few minutes or few hours only. Some species are semi-permanent. They can go up to like maybe months and months, whereas some flocks are permanent. So the permanence of mixed species flock varies time by time, or season by season, or during breeding season or non-breeding season. I mean, the permanence is affected by different factors of the environment. Another nature of mixed species flock is the flocking is more, particularly during the non-breeding season. So when breeding season, then these monospecies, I mean, the same species has to come closer, right? That is why in the breeding season, flocking is less found, whereas in non-breeding season, the flocking or mixed species flocks are more observed. In the same way, in the mixed species flocks, there are passive participants and active participants as well. Active participants, all those species which join flock very easily, very swiftly, and passive participants are those species which joins the flock a bit lesser, or which follows the the flock. The next is larger mixed species flocks move. I mean, they can move very fast, right? As a result, what happens is the smaller flocks will move a bit slower, because the larger mixed species flocks, they have like more number of individuals, and hence they have to move from one place to another place. That's why the average speed is a bit more than the smaller flocks. So less number of individuals, less smaller flocks means they can forage here and there and spend more number of time. As a result, their speed is a bit less. The another point is mixed species flocks do not move far. I mean, they have their kind of home range. They circle, or like they stay in some certain area. They don't like travel like kilometers and kilometers away. While mixed species move, canopy species in the front, while understory species usually followed. So the canopy species are the species that leads the flock, and the understory species will usually follow the leaders. So mixed species flocks, if you talk about how much percentage of the species species have the nature of mixed species flocking, then so according to Fashion et al. 2018, 19% of the bird species of the world join mixed species flocks, and the number of participants of mixed species flock could range from 2 to 60, and the average flock size is around 27. So what kind of species prefer flocking together then? Usually the species which are very small, usually the species which are insectivores and the arboreal species or the aerial species. These kind of species join the mixed species flocks. In mixed species flocks, just like we human beings, two types of participants. One is leader species and another is followers. So the responsibility of leader is very crucial. The leader has the responsibility to form, to maintain, and to lead mixed species flocks. So they have a very strong very important responsibility to to carry or to lead the flocks, in a very to the places where there are food, where there are less predators, or where there are no predators. And they're also responsible for maintaining the group as well. In the same way, the leader species could be gregarious. I mean, they have more number could be more. They are always very active, constantly active, and they're very vocalized. They always babble, or like they always have like different kinds of sounds, different kinds of things going on in the flock. In the same way, they provide the foraging and anti-predation benefits. Leaders are those which will provide benefits to the followers, whereas the followers are those which simply follow the leaders, and they are provided with the vigilance and foraging benefit from the leader species. Okay, so I would skip this slide probably. Okay, I'll just share you one or two important points. The activity of the mixed species flocks varies in different times of a day. So mixed species flocks, I mean, the foraging time or foraging speed. So these varies in different times of a day. And if there are like more number of species, then again, the foraging speed would be affected. And particularly during the migration period, the migrants or the migratory species will also be introduced to the mixed species flocks, and hence the composition of the mixed species flocks, particularly during the migration period, changes. And predation risk is among the two benefits. One is foraging benefit and the other is predation benefit. Among the two benefits, predation risk is supposed to be the most important factor which helps to form the mixed species flocks. Okay, so if you look at this picture, this is the cover picture of the book published by my professor, Professor Eben Goodell. If you look at this book cover, then you would see innumerable bird species, like for example, the trogons, the verdure flycatcher, the tits, in the same way, the drongos, nuthatches, the warblers. So there are different species. This particular picture gives us a glance that in the forest, you can find different species flocking together. So that this is one section of what I wanted to share you about. Another thing that I want to share you about is what I have done for one of the small thing that I've done for my PhD. I want to see whether there are mixed species flocks in the context of Nepal or not. As I previously mentioned, the mixed species flock study have been studied all over the world, and I wanted to know, is it present in Nepal as well? And another thing I wanted to ask, or I want to know about, is in the other parts of the world, drongos are thought to be important for the mixed species flocks. This species is the greater racket-tailed drongo, and this greater racket-tailed drongo, I mean, there are other species of drongos as well in Chitwan National Park, and I want to understand whether drongos could be considered as a nuclear species for Nepal or not. So I conducted my study in Chitwan National Park, and that was conducted from October 2019 to January 2020. I conducted my study from the morning to day, and I basically noted a few things. One was composition of mixed species flocks. That means what are the different species that's there in one mixed species flock. And the other thing is where it forests on vertical strata. Is it in the canopy? Is it in the understory or mid-story or in the ground? And also I noted the leadership. So which species lead the mixed species flock? Leadership here means when if the mixed species flock, they move from a gap of forest to another forest. I mean, one patch of forest to another patch of forest, separated by some kind of gap. That could be a trail, road, that could be open water body, or that could be any road or something, anything that that separates the two patch of forest. So when the mixed species flock fly from one zone to another zone, I would simply note which species crossed the gap first and which species crossed the gap second, third, fourth, in that way. I analyzed my data, basically a very simple stuff, very simple statistics. One is Wells t-test. The another is I prepared a hierarchical cluster analysis. And I also used the Fisher exact test to determine whether different characteristics were spread non-randomly among the clusters that were prepared by cluster analysis. Moving on to the results. I conducted my study basically in two forests, Sal and Riverine Forest, and I had the opportunity to observe 222 mixed species flocks. Among them, the number of mixed species flocks were more present in the Sal forest, and more number of species were found in species also in Sal forest. Whereas when I considered and when I compared, when I did the analysis, I did not find the crucial difference between the total number of species between the Sal and Riverine forest. In the same way, the total number of individuals found in the Sal forest is 4,509, and in Riverine forest is like 1,588 species. So the mean number of species in a flock was around nine species, and the mean number of individuals was around 27 species. So I mean, there are records of the world in which these species individuals would be around 60 as well. Even the species number would be around 50, 55, or 60 as well. And there were 18 species which were present in more than 25% of the mixed species flocks. Mixed species flocks, if you categorize the mixed species flocks into feeding guild, foraging height, migration pattern, and feeding habitat, this is the scenario. Among the species which I've observed in Chitwan National Park, the insectivore species were more found, and if I considered the 81 species, then I found that the gleaners, I mean, this is one way of finding food or capturing food or eating food. There are other ways like proving, selling. So gleaning means the bird would go around and search for food with its beak, turn the leaves, and the proving is they make some kind of holes. They just dig their beaks on the trunk or in the branches, and they get the food. Whereas the selling means any species, or this is a kind of foraging, feeding, when the bird would fly in the sky or fly in the air and grab the insects. So that's salliers. So salliers were ranked in the second, and in the same way, probers were 11 in numbers. In the same way, if we talk about the foraging height, the more number of species were species which were in the canopy region of the forest. And in the same way, if we talk about the migration pattern, more number of species were residents. Migrants were a bit less. About the hierarchical cluster analysis, there were 3 clusters, and among the 3 clusters, the cluster 1 and cluster 2 were more important. In cluster 1, they were the species which had larger bodied species like these woodpeckers, greater racketal trongos, and greater agricultural drongos were more present in cluster 1. In the same way, in the cluster 2, warblers, Phalloscopidae family were present. That means the warblers were present more in cluster 2. I mean, this picture gives us the feeling, picture gives us a knowledge that in the case of Nepal, Nepal also, just like in the world, the larger body size species are present. As far as the leadership quest was concerned, I had opportunity to see 61 leadership observations, and among the 61 observations, both in the case of riverine forest and in the case of salt forest, greater racketal drongos led the flocks. That means greater racketal drongos is the species which crossed the gap first. It was a species which would drive these mixed species flocks to find the food, to find the predator, to send the alarm calls if there are any predators nearby. So the other species other leader species were scarlet minivet, in the same way barwing, flycatcher strike, even the bronze drongo, greater racketal, spangled drongo, scarlet minivet, and oriental white eye. There were other species also which I observed only in 2 chances or 2 events. Now, going back to the same cover slide of my professor's book. Now, I am sure you have an idea that the mixed species flocks does exist, and mixed species in the mixed species flocks is not that 1 or 2 or 3 species only fly together, but many species fly together to form a mixed species flock. So I would now go to the discussion section of my presentation. The mixed species flocks that I found in Chitwan National Park are very similar to the findings that Engstrom et al. Found in terms of size, in terms of composition, diversity, and species richness. In terms of diet as well, it is similar to the terrestrial forest of mixed species flocks that are found globally. That means insectivores are more in mixed species flocks, and terrestrial species are very less. The same finding was observed in 1999 by Fiole. As far as gregariousness is concerned, it resembles the patterns that appear in Asia, that is observed by Goodell et al., Diamond 1987, Wicks et al. In 2017 and 20. In the same way, in terms of foraging height as well, the observation that was done in Chitwan National Park is almost the same. Almost the same that was found in other parts of the world, in like Myanmar, India, and Malaysia, etc. So the important discussion that I want to present is that drongos is very important in terms of composing or maintaining the flocks, right? But what I found in our area in Chitwan National Park, what we found is drongos, or like greater racketal drongos, is very important in terms of being a nuclear species and in terms of leading the flock. So greater racketal drongo could be a nuclear species and could be a leadership. I mean, is a nuclear species and is very important for formation of the mixed species flocks. So another important thing that I wanted to share is the mixed species flocks in Chitwan is very similar to the mixed species flock composition that's found or that's already present all over the world, and drongos can be an important nuclear species. So probably the last slide is this study is very important in terms of conservation perspective as well. Just like we protect tigers, we protect rhinoceros, we protect leopards, or we protect red pandas as a keystone species. Once one species is protected, then other species are also protected. That is what is approach, right? In the same way, if we want to protect the forest, or if you want to protect the trees or birds, then this mixed species flock study is also very important. If we study well about the mixed species flock, then we can protect all the birds and we can protect the forest or like whole national park as well. And the important thing is mixed species flocks approach or nuclear species approach is very important, very, very important in the case of Nepal as well. And the very important message is this is the first study of mixed species flock conducted in Nepal, and it could kickstart the other studies that would be coming by the other generation. I would like to acknowledge the very important, very, very crucial role played by different people since before my PhD, during my PhD, and I have published these findings in avian research on the title "The Composition of Mixed Species Flocks of Birds in an Arunachal National Park," and also very much thankful to Tichana Multiple Campus, Tribhuvan University, Guangxi University, and of course, Resources Himalaya. The last slide for today's presentation is this message, that is, birds fly because they believe they can. All they have to do is open their wings and fly. You can too. So the important message is we should try to spread our wings and we should believe on ourselves. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Saraswati. Over to you.
Thank you, Gosai sir, for the talk on very new topic in Nepal. Now we'd like to move to discussion session, and I can see some of the question over chat box. I'll go from the first. There is a question from Suraj Baran sir. Do you mean mixed species flocks promote inter-species competition, or MSF are made up of non-competing species?
Do you mean, let me read, do you mean mixed species flock promotes interspecies competition, or mixed species flocks are made of non-competing species? Yeah, Suraj, thank you very much for the question. Mixed species flock reduces the interspecies competition. Usually these species which flock together don't compete with each other. As I mentioned, the foraging niche is different. I mean, the food, the diet is different, and the way they forage is different. So that's why these species fly together, since they have very less competition. But if there is a flock of single species, of monospecies, then they will compete for food, for sex, for everything, right? So that's why mixed species flock here, I mean, there would be the flock of those species which compete less.
Thank you, sir. अर्को क्वेसन पनि देखिरहेको छ मैले गंगा श्रेष्ठजीबाट उहाँले लेख्नु भएको छ, what is the possibility of a mixed species flock in urban center area?
Ganga, thank you for this wonderful question. This is an interesting question. I don't think I haven't come across any literatures which has dealt about urban, mixed species flock in urban areas, and probably because the mixed species flock does not much exist in the urban area. Again, the important question would be like, what would you consider an urban area? Like for an instance, if you say the UN park of Sangkamul area, if you think that, if you treat that as an urban forest, then probably the mixed species flock would be very, very, the chance of finding a mixed species flock would be very less because the area is truly small. But if you go to Shivapuri area, it's very close to urban area, right? Then mixed species flock should be present. So I think for mixed species flock to exist, that should be like bigger area, and that should be a bit away from the urban centered habitat, urban area.
Thank you, Gangaji. Question ko lagi ra सरलाई पनि answer ko लागि सन्तोष बजगाई सरले सोध्नु भएको छ, does kleptoparasitism exist between mixed species flock?
Yeah. Santosh, thank you. Another important topic to talk about. Yeah, kleptoparasitism of course exists. These racket-tailed drongos and drongos are so very cunning, so very clever that they do kleptoparasite. I mean, हामी केही चिज पाउनको निम्ति केही चिज गर्छौं नि हैन भने जस्तै ग्रेटर ऱ्याकेटेल ड्रङ्गोले चाहिँ के गर्छ भन्दाखेरि इट लिड्स फ्लक्स at least in the case of Chittor National Park. Then उसलाई चाहिँ बेनिफिट के हुन्छ त भन्दाखेरि उ सँगसँगै अरु बथान अरु 20-25 वटा स्पेसिस अथवा भनौं 40-50 वटा इन्डिभिजुअल्सहरु चाहिँ सँगै उड्छन् त्यो सँगै उड्दाखेरि what happens is they disturb the insects and as they disturbs the insects they just they capture they sally and capture the insects that are disturbed by other species. This is like cryptoparasitism is there, and the one of the good example is the drongos hiring other species to disturb the insects and catching those insects.
Thank you, sir. MG question सोध्नु भएको छ उहाँको क्वेशन लामो छ मैले एकैछिन पढ्छु किन इन्सेक्टिभोर स्पेसिसले चाहिँ मिक्स्ड फ्लक फर्म गर्छ why not other feeding gills from the flock if a predator attack the flock do they respond or defense together if not what is the benefit of it as it increases more chances of finding prey for predators in a flock to always same individual lead the flock next time or next day like a leader in mammals.
Okay, Dr. Haim, thank you very much. This again, like very important question. So his first question, Dr. Haim's first question is why only insectivore species form mixed flock? I'm sorry, I could not explain because of the limitation of time. It's not that insectivore species only form mixed flock. No, I mean the other species also. In the mixed species flocks, insectivore species are more. But there are other feeding gills as well. Other species which forage on nectars or like which feed on flowers, which feed on fruits. So even other species are also present, but the more percentage of or more number of species are insectivores. Why not other feeding gills from the flock? That's answered. If predator attacks the flock, do they respond or defense together? Yeah. So what happens is, just like I mentioned, there are different species which lead the flocks and which are very important, and they, those leading species or nuclear species, they provide alarms once they spot the predator, or if the participants also, not only the leaders, if the participants also spots or sees a predator, then everybody starts creating kind of alarm call. They send the alarm call, and as a result, they group together. Either they scare away the predator, or they run away, or they fly away. So that's also answered. If not, what is the benefit of? I think this is also answered. In flock, do always same individual lead the flock? Next, this is. I don't think this is nicely observed. Usually, different species have different leader species. Like for example, flock number 1 could have one leader species. Flock number 2 could have another species which is leading, right? But as far as like time of the day, I particularly don't have knowledge on this, like morning, greater ऱ्याकेटेल drongo leading the flock, and in the evening, scarlet minibet leading the flock. I personally don't have the knowledge on this. I didn't observe it, and I haven't come across any study that has done the leadership kind of stuff, kind of study on different time of the day or different days.
Thank you, Dr. Haim, sir. There is a question from Suman Mahat. How only with the study in Chittor National Park by mixed species flock and nuclear approach be good to conserve the protected species? How of Himalayan and mountain landscape birds?
Since my concentration was in Chittor National Park, so I tried to be a bit more specific. But as Suman Mahat ji mentioned, of course, the nuclear species approach or mixed species flock approach would be or should be very, very important, not only the Chitwan National Park or Tarai Belt, it should be very important for Himalayan landscape, the mountain landscape, and the hilly landscape as well. So since we have, I mean, only one study of mixed species flock in Nepal, we cannot exactly say whether it is really going to be productive or not, but if we conduct more number of mixed species flock studies, then we can surely have more data to prove that mixed species flock in Nepal also is effective for the conservation of birds and for conservation of a habitat.
Thank you, Kamal sir. There is no question in the chat box. I think we'll end the discussion here. Now we have come near to the end of the talk program. Now I would like to request Dr. Dinesh Neopane, Executive Director of Resources Himalaya Foundation, to give a vote of thanks to our guest speaker and the participants. Over to you, sir. Dr. Dinesh Neopane, sir, are you there?
Yes, thank you. I was trying to unmute the video. Thank you, Saraswati, for inviting Mr. Kamaraj Gosai for this talk series. And thank you, Kamaraj Gosai, for providing such a valuable time in talking about birds and their behaviors in this platform, organized by Resources Himalaya Foundation and Resources Himalaya Foundation and Environmental Graduates in Himalaya. Dr. Prahlad Nindan Conservation Forum is usually organized monthly, particularly every first Friday of the month, by inviting researchers and planners to talk about the contemporary topics and research outcomes. The talk that Mr. Gosai presented today was very fruitful, and it is very interesting to hear about the bird and its behavior and the ecology. And then it is very interesting to learn more about bird from the person who has spent several years in the field for the research. I hope all of the participants who are attending this program has enjoyed this talk. It is indeed a full-packed, fruitful information for all of us. For such amazing presentation, I would again like to thank Mr. Gosai for sharing this research outcome to our audience. We RHF usually provide a token of love to the presenters, but unfortunately we could not provide it today to you as we are having this program virtually. I request Mr. Gosai to accept our sincere thanks through this main. I would also like to thank the participants for the fruitful session and interaction. I can see the many participants in this talk, Dr. Gansam Gurung and Dr. Hem in this meeting as well. I would personally like to thank both of them and then all the participants who I personally doesn't know, but very having the presence in this talk program. With this, I would like to conclude the session with a special thanks to all the participants and the presenters. Again, have a nice day and please stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, all. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, sir.